Did it ever feel like being gifted came with a price no one warned you about? Like you were handed a shining sword as a child, one that everyone admired, but no one taught you how to carry its weight. They praised your brilliance, your insight, your potential. They said you were wise beyond your years. But they didn't see what it did to you. They didn't see how you were shrinking inside the echo chamber of other people's expectations, quietly unraveling beneath the pressure to always be exceptional. What if I told you that you're not broken? You're just burned out from holding that sword for too long, alone. No one teaches the gifted how to rest, how to be average, how to say, I don't know. They teach us how to shine, how to impress, how to stay ahead, but they don't teach us how to be human. And over time, that absence becomes a hunger. You've probably felt it, that ache in your chest that doesn't have a name. The one that wakes you in the middle of the night with questions like, why does everything feel so heavy when I haven't even done that much? Why do I feel like I'm wasting my life, even when I'm doing more than most? Why can't I just be happy with what I have? The truth is, burnout in gifted people is rarely physical. It's existential. It's not that your body can't keep up, it's that your soul is exhausted from performing a self that never got to rest. You became the person they celebrated, the one who understood things fast, the one who read between the lines, the one who made it all look effortless. But inside, you were constantly translating the world into a language no one else seemed to speak. You were holding your emotions with tweezers, dissecting them with precision, while others just felt. You were anticipating reactions, reading micro-expressions, sensing shifts in tone and temperature, before you even understood your own needs. It's not just that you were smart, it's that you learned, very early, that your value was tied to how well you performed, how well you met their hopes, how much you could carry without complaint. And so, you became what they needed: a mirror, a mind, a marvel, but not a person. No one asked the gifted child if they were tired. No one paused to wonder whether that dazzling vocabulary was a mask for loneliness, or whether that emotional insight was born from constantly managing the moods of volatile adults. Alfred Adler once said that human beings act more from their perceived goals than from their past. And maybe your goal, hidden, even from yourself, was simple. If I can just be good enough, useful enough, brilliant enough, they won't leave. That is not a conscious thought. That is an ache, a primal belief, one that formed in the spaces where love felt conditional and presence felt earned. So you overdeveloped your mind. You refined it into a diamond, sharp and cutting, dazzling and precise, but your nervous system never stopped holding its breath. And now, here you are, decades later, aching, confused, exhausted, but not broken, just burned out from surviving on praise instead of connection, from being known for your thoughts, but not your heart, from being seen for your output, but not your needs. Gabor Mate calls it the cost of adaptation, the ways we contort ourselves to keep the love coming. Even if it means abandoning our own emotional safety, even if it means becoming irreplaceable, at the cost of being truly known. You might not even remember the moment it started, but your body does. The clench in your jaw every time someone says, "You're so smart." The tightening in your chest when you fail. Not because it's a failure, but because it means the illusion has cracked. The illusion that you are invincible, that you are special, that you are immune to doubt. But you're not. You're just human, a deeply gifted, deeply tired human, who's been performing brilliance for so long. They forgot what it feels like to be average, and at peace. Let me tell you something gently. It is okay to be brilliant and sad. It is okay to be gifted and confused. It is okay to know 1,000 things, and still not know how to rest. You are not failing because you feel lost. You are waking up. Burnout in gifted people often looks like apathy, disinterest, numbness, but underneath, it's grief. The grief of a soul that's been sprinting through a maze of mirrors, searching for one that doesn't just reflect who you're supposed to be, but who you truly are. You learned to sparkle on cue, to downplay your pain, to shrink your joy so no one felt threatened, to hold your brilliance like a secret weapon, both admired and feared. But the one thing you didn't learn was how to feel safe being seen. Not for your mind, not for your achievements, but for the quiet, ordinary, unpolished self that exists beneath it all. And that's where the healing begins. Not with doing more, but with finally being enough without doing it all. Let me pause here, not to end, but to breathe with you. Because maybe that's what you've needed all along. Not another expectation, just a place to rest. A place where you're not the gifted one. Where you're not the responsible one. Where you're not the one who always has it together. But just a soul, breathing, feeling, becoming. No pressure, no performance, no fixing, just being. To be continued in the next message. And when you finally give yourself that permission, not as a reward, but as a birthright, something begins to shift. At first, it's subtle, like silence returning to a room that's been filled with applause for too long. Like standing in the middle of a quiet forest after years of city noise. And realizing, you can hear your own heartbeat again. You begin to notice how many of your choices weren't really choices at all, just reflexes. Automatic yeses to stay needed. Quick achievements to avoid feeling aimless. Sharp observations to stay one step ahead of disappointment. You became so good at understanding the world that you forgot how to simply experience it. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What if your fate wasn't to be the gifted one forever? What if the child who dazzled the room was just trying to feel safe? What if the teenager who aced everything was just trying to be held? What if the adult who always knows is finally ready to feel? Burnout isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up in the little things. The dread when you wake up. The dullness in conversations. The way even good things don't quite reach your heart. It's not because you're ungrateful. It's because you're tired of being who you're supposed to be. You were handed a script that read, brilliant, capable, strong, and you memorized every line. But no one asked if those words actually fit the shape of your soul. And now, those words are heavy, they chafe, they silence the parts of you that crave softness, uncertainty, slowness. You weren't meant to be a machine of insight. You were meant to live, to feel confused sometimes, to sit in the unknown, to forget things, to laugh without analyzing the punchline. But how do you learn that, when everyone expects you to already know? Here's the hard truth. The world rarely gives gifted people permission to rest. Because your usefulness became your identity. And rest looks like rebellion to those who've always admired your productivity. So the permission has to come from you. You have to say it aloud, even if your voice shakes. I am allowed to not be impressive. I am allowed to be unsure. I am allowed to be more than my mind. That might feel terrifying at first, like you're stepping off a stage with no script, no spotlight, no applause. But that's where your real life begins. In the spaces where no one is watching, where you're not performing, where you're not explaining your worth in bullet points and metaphors. In the soft, sacred places where you can just be human. Not exceptional, not efficient, not even understood, just you. And in those moments, those quiet, trembling moments, you begin to recover what burnout stole. Wonder, silliness, stillness, desire that's not attached to achievement, grief that's not edited for clarity, joy that doesn't need an audience. You begin to reclaim the parts of you that never got to develop because they weren't useful. And slowly, your nervous system starts to believe what your mind never dared to hope. That you are lovable, even when you're not dazzling. That you are safe, even when you're not sharp. That you are real, even when you're not right. And when that belief starts to take root, not as a mantra, but as a felt truth, you begin to rewrite the story you were given. No longer the gifted child carrying the world's hopes on trembling shoulders, but the adult who chooses softness, the soul who honors their limits, the human who reclaims their own pace. You don't have to earn your rest. You don't have to explain your exhaustion. You don't have to justify your longing for something slower, quieter, truer. You've done enough. You've carried enough. You've proven enough. Now it's time to be enough. Exactly as you are. If this resonated, you're not alone. Let me know what part felt real to you. And if you find yourself grieving the years you spent trying to earn love by being remarkable, that grief is sacred. It means you're waking up, not to failure, but to freedom. Because somewhere along the way, you were taught that your intelligence was your identity, that your value came from being different, being faster, being ahead, and maybe, for a time, that helped you survive. But survival is not the same as living. You see, when your worth is measured by your mind, your emotions become a liability. When your role is the gifted one, your humanity becomes an inconvenience. So you learn to hide it. The panic, the doubt, the exhaustion that clung to your bones like a second skin. You learn to function even when you were falling apart. You learn to smile while dissociating. You learn to listen to everyone else's needs, while yours curled up in the dark, hoping to be remembered. And still, they praised you. Still, they called you strong. Still, they said you were special. But special is a cage if you don't feel safe to be ordinary. Let me say that again, gently. Special is a cage if you don't feel safe to be ordinary. And what a quiet rebellion it is, to choose rest over relevance. To stop explaining yourself. To disappoint the roles you were never meant to play. To put down the sword of giftedness, and realize it was never your only light. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming your whole self. Not just the part you showed to the world, not just the persona, but the shadow, the child, the dreamer, the tired one, the one who doesn't always know what to do. You've lived so long in the persona, the version of you that others clapped for. But what if the parts you've buried, the vulnerable, the average, the uncertain, are the ones that know the way home? Because home is not in the applause. Home is in the quiet after. Home is in the breath you take when no one needs anything from you. Home is in the messy, non-linear, unproductive moments where you fully feel, what it means to be alive. Not useful, not admired, just alive. And maybe you don't know how to get there yet. Maybe your calendar is still filled with proving. Maybe your mind is still looping, still scanning, still striving. That's okay. Healing doesn't happen in giant leaps. It happens in pauses, in small permissions, in the moment you say, I'm tired, and don't immediately try to justify it. In the moment you stop mid-sentence and whisper to yourself, I matter, even if no one sees this part of me. In the moment you let your body cry without rushing it into a lesson. You are not broken because you can't keep up anymore. You are waking up from a long performance. You are not failing because your ambition has faded. You are learning to hear your soul again. And it speaks in a different language. Slower, softer, one that says, lay down the armor, unclench your jaw, come home to yourself. You never needed to impress the world to belong in it. You never needed to outrun your fear to be safe. You never needed to earn the love that should have been unconditional. So now, when the exhaustion rises like a tide, and the old voices whisper that you're falling behind, that you're wasting your potential, that you're disappointing the image they built around you, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what if the only thing I'm failing is a performance I no longer want to be in? Because beneath the burnout, beneath the layers of self-doubt, beneath the brilliant mask, is a human, a tender, tired, beautiful human. You don't need to shine to be seen. You don't need to explain to be understood. You don't need to give more of yourself to be loved. You have already given enough. You have already been enough. And now you get to be. Quietly, freely, fully. This is the life after giftedness. This is the life after performing. This is the life that waits when you finally say, I'm done carrying this alone. And someone, maybe even yourself, whispers back, you don't have to anymore. If this spoke to something buried deep inside you, I want you to know, you are not too much. You are not too tired to begin again. You are not alone. Let me know what part felt real to you. I'll be right here, listening. And maybe this is the first time you're realizing it wasn't just about being tired. It was about being shaped, molded into something brilliant and brittle. So many gifted children were never praised for simply existing. They were praised for performing adulthood early, for being mature for their age, for reading emotions in the room better than the adults did. But emotional hypervigilance isn't maturity. It's survival. It's learning that your worth increases when you're useful, when you can decode, de-escalate, anticipate, when you can read the unspoken needs of others and meet them before anyone has to ask. So you did. You became intuitive, empathic, hyper-aware, and people called it a gift. But they didn't see the cost. The way it made you forget your own needs. The way it trained you to abandon your emotions in favor of reading everyone else's. The way you confused attunement with love, and usefulness with belonging. Even now, in adulthood, Maybe you find it hard to sit still in the presence of someone else's discomfort. Maybe you still feel like you're failing when you don't know how to help. Maybe you still scan your environment, looking for cues that you're disappointing someone without realizing it. And maybe, just maybe, you're exhausted not because you've done too little, but because you've done too much for too long, with no space to fall apart. You were built to hold the weight of the room, but no one taught you how to put it down. And so, somewhere along the way, your emotional muscles tore silently. You kept walking anyway. You kept smiling. You kept earning approval with wisdom you shouldn't have had to carry yet. And now, when your body trembles with fatigue, when your mind refuses to process more data, when your joy feels out of reach, it isn't because you're lazy, or lost, or weak. It's because the system is signaling. The one within you, the one that's been holding too much, too fast, for too long. This isn't a breakdown, it's an invitation to meet the part of you that was always waiting for rest. Not the gifted one, not the strong one, not the clever one, the real one, the child who wanted to laugh loudly and be messy and feel sad without apologizing. The teenager who longed to be average just once, just to see what it felt like to not be under a microscope. The adult who aches not for validation, but for softness, who doesn't want to prove anymore, who just wants to be. Maybe this is your moment to listen not to the noise of the world, but to the gentle voice beneath the performance. The one that whispers, you don't have to earn rest. You don't have to be extraordinary to be enough. You don't have to hold your breath every time you fail. Because failure isn't fatal when you are loved for your essence, not your excellence. But first, you have to give yourself that kind of love. Unconditional, slow, unearned. A kind of love that sees the brilliance in your boundaries. That cherishes your silence just as much as your insight. That values your presence even when you're not solving, fixing, explaining, dazzling. This is the love your gifted self never got. But it's the love you can give yourself now. Not as a cure, not as a project, but as a homecoming. You are not your productivity. You are not your intellect. You are not the version of yourself that impresses people. You are a soul, aching to be held. And I promise you, beneath the burnout, beneath the coping, beneath the gifted identity, is someone worth knowing. Someone gentle, someone tired, someone real. Let that be enough for today. We'll continue in the next message to complete the full 3.000 word script. And if you're still here, still listening, it means a part of you already knows that something has to change, not in your achievements, not in your performance, but in the way you relate to yourself. Because high-functioning burnout isn't loud. It doesn't crash. It erodes. It creeps in quietly through emotional numbness, through the subtle dread of another successful day, through the emptiness you feel after another win, wondering why it didn't fix the hollow place inside. That's the part no one sees. The inner exhaustion of always having to be the one who gets it, who knows what to do, who never needs help. You see, when your worth becomes entangled with your utility, rest begins to feel like irrelevance. You start to believe that slowing down is equal to being forgotten. That stepping back means being replaced. That silence means you don't matter anymore. But here's the truth you've been avoiding. You are allowed to matter, even when you disappear for a while. You are allowed to go off the grid, to say, not today, to choose depth over visibility. You are allowed to heal in obscurity. Because healing doesn't need an audience. It only needs honesty. The gifted child within you isn't asking for more applause. They're asking for space, for softness, for a chance to be curious again without consequences. You've spent years explaining yourself to people who only understood your shine, not your shadows. But your healing won't come from being more understood. It will come from finally understanding yourself. And understanding doesn't begin with analysis. It begins with permission. Permission to sit in your sadness without fixing it. Permission to unlearn the belief that your pain has to be productive. Permission to want things, simple, human, quiet things, that have nothing to do with your potential. Maybe it's time to let go of the identity that always had the answers. Maybe it's time to let the questions breathe. To ask things like, what do I feel when I'm not needed? Who am I when I'm not impressive? What do I love, not because I'm good at it, but because it makes me feel alive? These aren't problems to solve. They're invitations. They're doorways into a different kind of life, a life not built on performance, but on presence. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, it will feel like letting go of control. Yes, it will feel like dying to who you've always been. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the version of you who always had it together was never meant to last forever. Maybe that version was built to survive. And now you're learning how to live. Not as a concept, not as a brand, but as a person. Messy, tender, whole. And you won't need to explain it to anyone. Because the real ones, the ones who see your heart, not your highlight reel, they'll understand. They'll love you not in spite of your stillness, but because of it. Because your stillness is sacred. It's where you meet the parts of yourself you exiled in the name of excellence. And in that meeting, quiet, trembling, holy, you remember, you were never meant to earn belonging. You were born with it. You were never meant to impress the world into loving you. You were meant to be loved exactly as you are. Right here, right now, without condition, without performance, without proof. Let that truth land. Let it echo in the space you've been afraid to occupy fully. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not a failed promise. You are simply returning to yourself, to the you beneath the giftedness, to the soul who has always been waiting, patiently, to be chosen by you. If this resonated, you're not alone. Let me know what part felt real to you.